I think out of all the gaming consoles I've ever owned in my life, the Nintendo Switch is my all-time favorite. I think the reason I enjoy it as much as I do is because of its versatility. I spend most of my time on the Switch in handheld mode. It's fun to be able to play it anywhere. I can move to any room of the house, bring it over to friends or family's houses, play it on flights or road trips, and not only that, but I can also hand someone else a Joy-Con and play with them as well. But it's also nice that when I want to, I can also set the Switch in my dock and play it on my TV or my computer monitor. I've recommended the Switch to most of my friends and family, and they ended up buying it for these reasons and they were not disappointed. Sure, it's not the most powerful console, but that's the entire reason that I have a PC. So it's nice to have my Switch for whenever I'd rather not sit at my desk. But say you're looking to buy a Switch, recently got one, or just looking for some game recommendations. Well, I wanted to put together a list of my personal top 5 games that are exclusive to the Switch, and give a bit of an explanation for each to hopefully help people out who are struggling to make their decision. I wanted to start this off by letting everybody know that I haven't played every single Switch exclusive game, but I do feel like I've played the majority of them or even own them. And beyond that, this list is also my personal opinion. So if you would replace some of the games in this list, that's great. It's perfectly normal for people to have different opinions. So actually, I'd like to know that. Comment down below what your personal list is and let me know why you enjoy those games. But let's go ahead and hop right into it. We're going to start with game number 5, and that's going to be Astral Chain. This character action game, created by Platinum, was super fun to play. You play as a police officer that's assigned to a special division within the government called Neuron, along with your twin sibling. When you start out the game, you're going to decide if you want to play as the male or female twin. Whichever one you don't decide to play as will become an important character named Akira, and will be there throughout the entire rest of the game. They'll also have all of the character and dialogue, yours will not. So honestly, when you make the decision of who you're going to play in this game, consider who you find less interesting being the character you play as. Because the other character will be the one that you're actually going to be seeing more of the development through, and more of the character and dialogue through. I ended up picking the female character for the first playthrough, and kind of ended up regretting it later. For all of Platinum's games, I've really enjoyed the female leads they've put in their game, such as Bayonetta and 2B. And this was kind of disappointing because my character never spoke or had any personality. All that I heard was grunts. It's pretty unfortunate, but honestly what this game lacked in its protagonist, it way more than made up for in its gameplay. This game is set in a distant future, in a dystopian city referred to as the Ark. This is one of the very few human civilizations left. Most of the planet has been eradicated by interdimensional lifeforms called chimeras. In efforts to fight back, the director of Neuron and his team developed countermeasures called legions. Legions are chimeras that have been captured and are forcibly controlled through a collar that's connected to a chain held by a Neuron officer. Throughout the game, you'll eventually be given access to taking control of 5 unique legions. You'll start with the Sword Legion, and work your way to unlocking the Arrow, Arm, Beast, and Axe Legions. So while you have your Legion deployed, it will constantly deplete a meter. When that meter reaches the value of 0, your Legion will retreat, and you'll have to wait for that meter to recharge. So you'll always be given access to your character's combos and movesets, utilizing a special baton that has different forms. One, as an agile, quick baton, can transform into a rapid-firing handgun, and lastly, a heavy-hitting sword. So when you have your Legion deployed as well, you can control your own character and issue commands to your Legion while holding down a shoulder button. The Legion can act on its own if left without commands, but oftentimes it's favorable to make quick reactions and learn to micromanage your character and your Legion's positions to put out the most optimal damage and also keep yourself safe. So the chain that's between you and your Chimera holds more significance than just narrative reasons. It's actually used in combat. You can use it to wrap around enemies, locking them down. It can also be used to absorb attacks and send the momentum of that enemy back at them, flinging them further away. It can also be used to pull your Legion to your location or pull you to theirs, making a really cool dodge mechanic, and also giving you an incredible amount of mobility. The chain is what really makes the game feel extremely fast-paced and less restrictive, as ironic as that is. Overall, it's extremely obvious that the game developers put the most care and work into the combat of this game, and it's honestly excellent. It's so good that I can still turn a blind eye to most of the game's flaws every time I play it. But let's actually discuss what those flaws are, because I wouldn't really feel right recommending the game without at least warning people of its downfalls. There's a lot of weird, tacked on, unnecessary systems in this game. Such as when you want to upgrade your character, you use some in-game currency, you buy some stat upgrades, your baton is now stronger, or you can have your Legion out longer. But if you want to upgrade your specific Legion, you have specific skill trees for each Legion that has some stats hidden away, some abilities, some ability slots. It just feels weird to not have just a general system for everything. Why am I not just buying the abilities that I want from a store? It just felt pretty unexplored, and there really wasn't as much a reward that I was hoping for in the skill tree if they were going to put it in the game. Minor complaint, but still felt a little bit weird. Also, there's weird mechanics like cleaning your legions. So say after a mission, you had your Sword Legion chop up a lot of its friends. It's terrible, I know. and then you want to clean off the Chimera corruption. Cool, you can do that. But why? Why do you do that? The game doesn't tell you. It took some investigation on my part to figure out that if you don't clean off your legions, they'll do a little bit less damage. But the game refuses to tell you that. It also doesn't even really implement the system in a way that it tells you you're supposed to do it. You just kind of find it. But it's kind of unfortunate that they didn't bring this into any narrative discussion. It wasn't like your legion in the story decides to like you more the more that you take care of it. It was seriously never explored. And that kind of leads into one of my bigger gripes with the game, is that the story's pretty bad, honestly. It's very cliche, and there are so many plot holes, it's crazy. And it really sounds like I'm bagging on this game, but I mean, it's on this list for a reason. I love the game, but seriously, if it will bug you to have a game that is just not going to answer the obvious questions you're gonna have, maybe don't pick this game up. It's pretty bad about that. Like I said, it never actually addresses any of the relationship between you and your Chimera. There's a couple times where it tries to disobey you, and you beat the crap out of it, and then it listens to you again. But that's as far as it goes with saying things like your character feeling bad for chaining a being down and holding them against their will, or the Chimera constantly fighting back because it hates you. You really just don't have that in this game. It really sucks because this isn't the only time that the game does something like this, where it has a cool story idea that it just takes nowhere. It just seems to introduce things and then leave it up to interpretation, or just dodge them entirely. Also, a lot of things like character deaths or things that happen to characters just don't really have a whole lot of weight because they don't really make you care about the characters that much. They're just kind of there to move the plot, and they don't really have a whole lot of value otherwise. They're not super likable, and they don't really spend a ton of time for you to really get to know them. So that was a bit frustrating. But honestly, despite the issues, this game is one of my favorites that I played last year. And I'd still recommend it to anybody who enjoys games like DMC or Bayonetta for the combat reasons. But once again, just don't expect to have a story that you're going to be happy with. Unfortunately, that's just how it is with this game, but the combat is so amazing and so worth playing. I'm putting some in the background so you can see how fun it is, and hopefully that'll help you make a decision if it looks like it's worth it to pick up. Let's move on to number 4 though, and that's going to be Pokemon Sword and Shield. I've personally only played Pokemon Sword, but I mean, Shield is basically the same game with some very minor differences. Now, this game sparked a lot of controversy when it was announced along with the news that it would not have a national dex. Personally, this didn't bug me very much, because of the way that I've always played Pokemon games. I don't particularly love playing Pokemon competitively, it's never really drawn my attention. I typically play the game through multiple times with alternate teams full of Pokemon that I catch in that respective playthrough. I play the story to completion, then shelve the game after I complete all there is to do. Eventually, I pick it back up, restart the game, and do it all over again. I've played a version of every single Pokemon generation that there is, and have always played it like this. Sure, I did start to store my Pokemon in the Pokebank once that became an option, and it was honestly pretty fun to see my collection grow, but I was really not that disappointed when the Dexit news came out. I really did enjoy what they added with this game. I liked the new Pokemon a lot, and I liked finding out slowly which of my favorites made the cut into this game. Also, I was incredibly happy that they decided to integrate more things with playing with friends. Having things like the wild area to where you could actually see your friends, move around with them, take on raids, battle Pokemon and catch them together. It was super fun. If only it was more stable. As, you know, classic Nintendo, the online with this game is just not good at all. But I'm still glad they're making steps towards it. Now, I know there's more things that they could do with this game, with the online stuff in particular, such as making it easier where you're in the wild area, just trade with your friends right there, or battle with them. Also, why is the wild area just one area? Why is it not the entire game? There's a reason that games like Temtem got the funding from people like me. I would love a Pokemon MMO. That would be super fun. I'm not even a huge fan of MMOs, but playing Pokemon with my friends all the way through, that sounds super fun. And it's not restricted to other people as long as they don't make it restricted to other people. With every game so far, they haven't really had anything like this, so obviously they know how to do the single player stuff, so why not give us more multiplayer stuff? Pokemon's always tried to push playing with friends. That's why you're encouraged to evolve certain Pokemon through things like trades, so make it more integrated, make it more natural into the actual game. Now, I know this game also wasn't like the most polished with its animations and had a lot of controversy with that as well, but that's personally not what I'm looking for too much. And I can't deny the fact that I had a lot of fun playing this game all the way through. I put a lot of time into it, and I'll probably do it all over again. I'm definitely going to get the DLCs because I'm a sucker for this series, and I just can't help myself. And I know a lot of the things that they could have done and should have implemented should discredit this game more, but like I said, I can't deny the fact that I had so much fun playing this game through, and I really did just enjoy it overall. and that's why it made it on this list. I love this series, and it's going to take a lot for me to not love this series. I do genuinely hope that they'll put more effort into their games for the future, but it's a series that's always hit home on every single major release, and I think it'll continue to do so for a while. Alright, so game number 3, Smash Bros. Ultimate. Who doesn't love Smash? The game speaks for itself. I don't need to sell it to you or tell you about it. You know what it is. You've definitely played a version of this game at some point or another in your life. What's cool about this game too is it takes the mistakes that Pokemon Sword and Shield made and takes a very different approach. This game's actually incredibly polished. There's lots of little details with every single character, like the way that they react to other characters' moves, or even just think about how big this roster is, and every single character gives Kirby a different hat when he takes their ability. Not huge, but just think that's literally one character in the roster that has all that detail. There's a crazy amount of stages, characters, music, all of this stuff that you know had to take a lot of work to get to where it was. Now, if only they could do the same thing with their online. That's my one gripe with this game, is the online is borderline unplayable. I've played with my friends several times where I know that we both have LAN adapters and it's still a struggle to get a good connection. Lots of input lag and just general DCs, even though our internet is just fine. It makes no sense. We're not even that far away from each other. Playing online with strangers that don't have LAN adapters, oh man, like, don't even bother. It's seriously unplayable. But, I mean, that's just one aspect of the game, and honestly, I've spent the majority of my time playing with my wife or family or whoever comes over and playing locally anyways, and that's where I have the majority of my fun. So, it is definitely a gripe, and it's honestly something that needs to be resolved in the future if they ever want this game to be taken more seriously and more competitively. But I know that's not always their focus. It is a shame that there's not an option for those people that do want to take it way more seriously though. Or at least not a very viable option. But this game, I love it a lot, and I've played countless hours from Melee forward with every single iteration of this game. Definitely one of my favorite series ever. But honestly, this game doesn't need to be talked about a whole lot just because, like I said, everyone knows what it is. They know what it's about. So let's go ahead and move on to game number 2. And that's going to be Fire Emblem Three Houses. Now this is actually my first Fire Emblem game that I've ever finished. I've tried a handful of other ones and didn't get super into them for whatever reason, but this one I could not stop playing. I love the Persona-esque relationship sim that they put in the game, letting you as a professor get to know your students, develop a relationship with them, and all of the characters are unique and worth getting to know. So I really enjoyed getting to know the backstories of each character, seeing why they did what they did. They honestly made a lot of really cool motives for most characters, and even seeing the interactions from one character to another. Every single character has a story with every other character, if that makes sense. Some of them sure are a little more bland, but it's just cool that there was a unique story thought out between every single character. But even beyond that, this game has so much value for purchasing it. They give you at least 4 unique playthroughs with all different stories and different characters that are pretty diverse from each other, and they're all on par story-wise, in my opinion. Sure, I prefer other ones more, but it's just cool to me that my first playthrough took about 40 hours, and sure, New Game Plus makes it a little bit easier for you to get through things faster, but just say you average about 20 hours of playthrough, and that's incredibly generous, I think. That's still if you're rushing through and skipping a lot of dialogue. If you play all 4 playthroughs and then just drop the game, that's still 80 hours. That's a lot of time, and it's honestly like quality gameplay. This game is honestly an extremely close second to the first game on this list. I just love that game a little bit more. But if you haven't played a Fire Emblem game before, and you've been deterred because of that, please don't miss out on this game. It's incredible, and definitely a good starting point for a new fan of this series. Alright, so we're finally to game number 1. I'd be shocked if you haven't guessed it by now, and that's going to be Breath of the Wild. I know on a technicality this one shouldn't be on a list because it was also released in the Wii U, but who has a Wii U? Honestly, this game, I think honestly most people don't even know that the game was released on Wii U. I could be wrong on that, and if you want to just say that this discredits the whole thing, then take Fire Emblem Three Houses as my number 1. But I love this game, and I want to talk about it anyways, so here we go. I'm a huge Zelda fan. I've played almost every Zelda game that there is, at least of the mainline ones, not like spin-offs or anything like that. But it's really cool to see that the first time that Zelda tries to make an open world, they make one of the best open worlds ever. It doesn't feel completely aimless and empty. It's full of really interesting places to go. There's also like enough of an objective from the get-go for you to have a goal, but it's not restrictive at all. You're never told exactly what to do, and you're not limited because you didn't do something. The main limitations is if you're skilled enough to pull off what you're trying to do, if you have good enough gear, or other limiting factors similar to that, but not the game like walling an area off or something like that. If you want to, you can go try to end the game right away. You can run straight to Ganon's castle. You'll probably die because you won't know what you're doing, but you can do it, and that's a pretty cool feature. It's easy to get lost in this game for hours and make meaningful progress. finding unique areas to explore that are honestly a reward in itself. There's a lot in this game that just warrants you sitting there and just staring at it for a while because it's gorgeous. It never feels like when you're wandering aimlessly, you're not going to get to something that's at least going to hold your attention for a bit. Whether that's just finding a cool shaped lake, finding a new horse, finding some Gorons working out, whatever it is. Honestly, there's a lot to find, and a lot of the interactions that you discover and find in this game just make it super worth it. Seriously, every time that I start this game, I find something new. I'm kind of blown away with how much work went into this game, and just the amount of things that you can do. It's personally my game of choice in the Switch whenever I have no idea what I want to do, and then I end up losing several hours being drawn right back in. The game is relaxing, but it also holds your attention with combat and exploration, so generally whatever mood I'm in, I can always find something to have fun with. And honestly, I don't know what else I need to ask for. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons that I love this game so much and why it made it to #1 on this list. And with that, that's actually going to conclude the list. So don't forget to let me know what your personal favorite games are on the Switch. Comment that down below and let me know why you love each game. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more content in the future. But that's going to wrap this one up, so I just want to say thank you for being here, watching it all the way through, and I'll see you in the next one.